On today's video, we'll tell you why you might consider taking Hellblasters over Inceptors.
Welcome to Implausible Nature, home to competitive Black Templars gameplay.
And just remember that if you like what you see here or are interested in more competitive Black Templars content, please leave a like and make sure that you're subscribed. All right, on today's video, we are going to discuss Hellblasters versus Inceptors and the math and everything behind those. As you may have noticed, we did not include Hellblasters in our recent heavy support video where we talked about the best heavy support units for Black Templars. And today, I'm going to tell you why I've been thinking that maybe that was a mistake. And so we'll go over everything, and then Bob will have a counterpoint for us on why it wasn't. So to get started, we're going to go over each unit here. So taking a look at the Hellblasters, they come 5 to 10 man. They have your standard Primaris stat line that you can see here. They can pick one of 3 weapons. They can either take the Assault Plasma, the Heavy Plasma, or the regular Plasma, similar to their Intercessor brothers. We're only going to talk about the Assault Plasma because mathematically it is better than every other Plasma that they offer. Even with its lower strength, it is still going to be much better than those others. So to quickly go over that, you can see it's a 24-inch range gun, Assault 3, Strength 6, AP -4, and 1 damage, and then you can overcharge it to bump that to Strike 7 and 2 damage. And then, of course, the plasma weapon rules apply. So that is our Hellblaster datasheet there. And then we'll take a look here at the Inceptors. These guys are flying Gravis units. They have jump packs, so they have a 10-inch move. They have the Gravis stat line otherwise. They only come 3 to 6, so you'll have fewer total models, but they are armed with 2 Plasma Exterminators. So each one of those Plasma Exterminators is going to be an 18-inch range Assault D3 plasma weapon, Strength 7, AP -3, 1 damage with Blast. And then when you supercharge it, of course, you get that +1 strength to Strength 8, which is actually an important breakpoint in strength. And then, of course, that 2 damage. And all Plasma, if you roll an unmodified hit roll of 1, then the bearer dies after shooting with that weapon. Because these things are blast, any units that, and they're D3 apiece versus, and he has 2 guns, versus being a single weapon that's 2D3, you're going to get a maximum shots on any unit over 5. So these guys are right now considered one of the top meta choices. We talked about them in our fast attack video, which you can see here. And, a lot of chapters are running them. But I don't think that we should sleep on Hellblasters either. So let's take a look at the math here. And you can see both squads, a minimum size squad of each, costs exactly the same, 165 points. I did all the math here with rerolls of 1 because you are not going to leave home without a captain or some source of rerolls 1 for these guys. Overcharging is a lifestyle choice, as Games Workshop put recently in one of their articles, and you are definitely going to want to overcharge most of the time, especially against things like vehicles and marines and things like that. So taking a look here, we can see that 5 Assault Hellblasters is going to put out 15 shots all the time, no matter what. Your Inceptors, I've got 2 different numbers here. We'll see the average number of shots that they'll put out is going to be 12. And if they do benefit from blast, they'll get 18. So taking a look at the math here, the average number of shots versus Assault Hellblasters, the Hellblasters actually beat them out pretty handily on a lot of these categories here. And the reason for that is, 1, especially on things like Gravis, where both guns are going to wound them on 3s anyway. That extra AP helps just completely negate their armor, which is nice. So they're going to do better overall for that on the tougher targets. They are the same on Terminators, and that's because of that, and Blade Guard veterans, and that's because of that Storm Shield. That invulnerable save essentially negates the Hellblaster's extra pip of AP there. But on max shots, obviously Inceptors definitely take the cake here in basically every category. Pretty handily on some of them, especially Marines. You're going to kill an extra 2 guys, an extra Gravis Marine, about 1 to 2 extra Necrons. They definitely win when you can get those max shots. You're not always going to get those max shots though, so that's why we kind of look at both of them. But you will also pay a premium for that. Most of the time, you're going to be looking at taking a 5-man squad of the Inceptors versus most people are probably not going to run 8 to 10 Assault Hellblasters. Moving on, we also wanted to, because of that disparity, we wanted to also compare per 100 points where we're at. And the numbers are actually much closer here. So even with the max shots, the Inceptors win pretty handily against Marines with 11.7 wounds versus 9.43 per 100 points, but they're pretty close everywhere else. The max shots obviously do much better against Terminators, again, because they just have more shots to deal with and they're strength 8, so they're wounding on 2s. The advantage the Hellblasters have is that extra pip of AP, which is negated by that Storm Shield. So otherwise, per 100 points, the Assault Hellblasters are actually quite competitive, beating out, again, the average shots, but much closer to the max shots. So we've looked at the math now as far as how much damage they can do. Take a quick look and look at some of the differences between the units. Obviously, the Inceptors are fast. They are 10-inch move with an 18-inch gun. They have fly, which is great. They can just move over anything they want to. That gives them a 28-inch threat range. The Hellblasters, though, have a 24-inch gun. And while they only move 6, and they are infantry, so they can't just move over enemy units and whatnot, they do have a couple of extra inches. So depending on where they are on the board, they do have a 30-inch threat range, which is pretty great. And you're also going to get more wounds per 165-point squad. You're going to have 9 Inceptors versus you're going to have 10 Hellblasters. Obviously, the Inceptors are Gravis, so they are tough 5, which definitely makes a difference. However, they're both Primaris, so anything that would wound your Hellblasters on 2s, you can spend 1 CP and get Transhuman and even the playing field there. Overall, I think that both squads have pluses and minuses, but I think Hellblasters are definitely worth considering, especially given some of the advantages that they have with the number of shots that they put out. Another thing to consider is that every time you lose a Hellblaster or an Inceptor to overheats, the Inceptor's squad is hurt significantly more by that loss of that guy, anywhere from 2 to 6 shots versus just 3 per model that you're losing. So, Bob, what do you think?
All right, it's my turn. So I'm this dissenting voice here. So when Alex came to me about us considering this, I was strongly worded in favor of the Inceptors. Now, don't get me wrong here, Inceptors are a great unit, but I still think they have their weaknesses, and I don't typically take them in my lists. But when comparing the two, Inceptors, in my mind, take the cake, handedly. Now, we see the math here, and it looks, on paper, like the Assault Hellblasters do better. But you have to think about the intangibles. So this first is assuming that they both have reroll 1s. So, with the Inceptors, when you're taking them in a list, you're typically using them with a captain. Due to their mobility, those Inceptors are able to keep pace with a very aggressive captain in the middle of the board, or even advancing into your opponent's side of the board without any loss of efficiency or locking them to a specific point in the board. Now, with the Assault Hellblasters, they're much slower, so you need a babysitter captain or Wisdom of the Ancients, Dreadnought, to be effective. Now, is that a good use of CP or an extra 100 points on a captain? I don't think so. With the Inceptor, at least your captain is still doing something, advancing with the rest of the army, still being able to get into combat if it needs to, all of those things, where you're not having to lock and just sit back with that captain shooting and basically just being a buffer. That's not how we play our games. So that's the first point. Second point is, even if your Inceptors are not carting around with a captain, they can go anywhere they want. They can jump on top of that tall building and have that shot. They can move around the building just fine, or get vantage of line of sight due to being on their flight stand, where the Hellblasters are going to be shorter. So that's also a huge benefit over the Hellblaster. Now, he did talk about the toughness difference between the Hellblasters and the Inceptors. So inherently, the Inceptors are more durable because of that extra toughness. Yes, you can use Transhuman to even the playing field there, but again, that's going to cost you an extra CP. Another most excellent point that I have to point out is why are you taking Hellblasters when you should be taking Grav Devastators, when you should be taking Eradicators. Those are much better units. Fast attack slot really only has a couple of things in it that you're really going to be taking most games in a list, and that's going to be either the attack bikes or maybe your outriders on some niche picks there. So the Inceptors are really kind of not really competing for anything right there in that fast attack, where the heavy support is filled with stuff that you want to take, and you may not have the heavy support slots to really fit in a Hellblaster. And then the final thing that I want to take mention is while you do have access to Transhuman, being Primaris, the Inceptor does have access to things like unyielding in the face of the foe, which will give you a durability increase as well. And of course, you can use Transhuman if it's absolutely necessary and if you're facing a Strength 10 item. But overall, I don't think that the slight increase in your killability with the Assault Hellblasters warrants them being taken over the traditional heavy support slot things that we already talked about, like the Eradicators or the Grav Devs. And the Inceptors, you can build them to a much larger size squad for similar points and be much more effective, in my opinion. So that's where I currently stand on this argument. So hopefully that's a kind of a counterpoint for you.
All great points, Bob. I do agree with a lot of those things that you said. You have to consider carefully things like, do I want, to have a captain more towards the backfield? Do I want to be spending CP every turn with my Wisdom of the Ancients, on a Dreadnought? Things like that. So definitely some great counterpoints. I think, if you're trying to win tournaments, you probably want to go with Inceptors. But if you are just playing a little bit more casually, I think you can get by with Hellblasters. There's also one last point that I want to make about Hellblasters versus Inceptors, and that is Inceptors are ugly. They are so terrible looking. I hate those models. They're so awful versus you have like the gorgeous Intercessor model with the Hellblaster gun. So
I knew it was coming.
I don't think I don't think you can refute that one.
Nope, I can agree with that.
So and that was sort of part of my thought process is like, man, I was like, I just hate these models. Like, what are my other alternatives to running some plasma? And I was like, well, what about Hellblasters? So in any case, so there you have it. That is sort of our point and counterpoint as to whether you should take one of these squads over the other. Tell us what you think. We want to know, have you had success with Hellblasters versus Inceptors? What do you like about each of these units? Do you have one that you prefer? Let us know down in the comments below. So that about wraps it up for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button and make sure you click the bell icon to get notified on all of our latest content. We have a Patreon, and we greatly appreciate their support. So if you'd like to get some exclusive content, or you'd just like to support the channel, we really appreciate it. Also, be sure to check out our Discord. We have an active community of players on there where you can get lots of help or discussion on all things Black Templars. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.